Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Yarnflakes Podcast. My name is Audrey. I am a knitwear designer from the southwest of France, and this is a podcast where I share all that I'm knitting. Thank you so much for joining me for this new episode. Thank you as well for your kind words on my last podcast in the comments or on social media for my birthday. Thank you. And yeah, I have a little episode for you. Oh God, I was very chatty in the French podcast and I'm gonna try to be a little bit more efficient. And it's not starting great, right? So I have a little episode with quite a few different things to share. I have a new shawl design. I have a couple of finished, three finished objects, one of which I can't really show you because I have gifted it, but I will talk about it nevertheless. The top that I'm wearing and something else. But that is it. And I also have a new work in progress, which I'm really excited about. So that's the plan for this episode. You can find timestamps to all the different sections of the podcast in the description. So if you want to skip anything or find an information in particular, feel free to look at this. I also put links to everything that I talk about, my social media, my pattern shops, and my Patreon, where you can support me and have access to some behind-the-scenes content and to my patterns at a more advantageous price. So I'm going to start with a new design that I just published, and it is a shawl which can be made into a bunch of different shapes and colors. So it's a modular shawl, and I wanted to make a more beginner-friendly modular shawl with very simple texture. And so here it is the Oberon shawl, and so it's more like a stole, really. I don't really know if I should call it shawl or stole. And so you start with this section here, which is, you start here and you increase on both sides. So it's a little bit frumpy because I forgot to to unfold it before showing it to you. So I'm sorry, but that's how it is. And you increase slowly on either side and you are making stripes in garter stitch. And the increase rate is so that you don't need to count your stitches because they are placed at a strategic point in your stripes, so you can count your garter rows or your stripes and you know when you need to make an increase, so it's a little bit more intuitive like this. I also wanted to mention that in case you're having trouble counting garter stripes, that's something that I hear some people have trouble with, because you see the garter stripes, they're making like wavy lines. And depending on your yarn, on your tension, it can be a little bit difficult to see. So what you can do is you can stretch it lengthwise and you see more clearly the lines that are formed. So garter is made of one, when you're looking at one side, you have one knit row and then one purl row, and the purl bumps that you see are here, and it's if you're knitting flat, it's the knit row that you did on the other side. So if you stretch it and you can see these lines, this is 2 rows. You can count these basically, and these counts as 2 rows. So if you're having trouble counting garter stitch, that is a way to more clearly see the lines. So you increase, and then you start section 2, which is worked in half brioche or fisherman's rib, I don't know. Basically, it's one tuck stitch and the other stitch is just a normal purl stitch. So it's not full brioche, and you can see on the wrong side that it's just laying more flat. And this is just a bit easier to knit because if you ever drop the yarn over of the tuck stitch, so tuck stitch is you slip one stitch and you put a yarn over on top of it, and if you drop it, it can be a little bit annoying to pick it back up. But since you only have one of them instead of the entire fabric being like this, it's a little bit easier to see. It also uses less yarn and it's less time consuming. And in this section you decrease here on the side. And you decrease until a point. And you can stop here. You can stop here with sections 1 and 2, and it creates a smaller, imagine that this is not there, and it creates a fine, quite long, but not too deep, triangular shawl. All the different sections of the shawl are fully finished, so you always have a garter edge here. So you can stop at any point, basically. So you can make this shape, or you can continue and start section 3, which where you pick up stitches here and you work seed stitch. I really like seed stitch. Yes, it does take longer to knit, but I just really like the fabric, and I always find that it reflects lights in a very interesting manner. All the little purl bumps. In this section you're also decreasing on one edge, and you're decreasing quite a lot, so it's a tighter edge. It's not elastic here because it's basically going to go downwards like so and create another. Interrupted by the mailman, and I don't know what I was saying. But yeah, basically, so the decreasing edge on the seed stitch section does not need to be stretchy, so it makes it sort of tends to go lower, and it creates this point here. And I'm sorry about folds. Like I said, I forgot to lay it flat. And you can also stop here, and basically this creates a slightly deeper stole, but it's still a finer one. Like, this is the maximum width that you ever have. And yeah, you can have this shape as well, with a point here and a straighter edge on one side. Or you can make the last section, section 4, which is picked up from the edge of the seed stitch section. My phone is charging and I moved the cable. And you are working in a slip stitch and garter stitch texture. And you're decreasing on both edges, so it's a finer section until the point. And then you finish everything by working an I-cord bind off all around the shawl. You're picking up as you go, and it was a nice way for me to sort of make a more cohesive color look. And yeah, so that is the shawl. So like I say, you can make all the different shapes stopping at different points, and you can also use a variety of colors. Like, you can skip the stripes here, you can make it just one color, you can use leftovers as well. The pattern includes details specifically on how much each section uses of each color, so you can plan leftovers like this. And there are also lines everywhere. And there is also a schematic of the shawl, which you can see on the pattern page, so you can understand the shape a little bit better, because it's a bit difficult for me to show it entirely here and to lay it kind of flat. So you can see the schematic, which also you can color in if you like, if you want to plan your colors this way. So yeah, it's a rather long stole, which you can wrap twice around your neck, or you can make a knot under here, basically, which is how I plan to wear it mostly. And yeah, this is the Oberon design. So it is worked in figuring weight, and I used yarn from a French indie dyer called Célène, which has really nice nuanced colors, And so I used her Merino Superwash base, and this is Cendre de Rose, so rose ash, Bois de Rose, so rosewood, which is the one in the stripes and in the seed stitch section. This gorgeous purple is Vitelotte, which is the name of the purple potato, and it's darker, it's slightly darker than what the camera keeps brightening it up for some reason, but it's really beautiful, nuanced purple. Really, really like this one. And the last color is Noisette Hazelnut, which is pretty much a caramelly hazelnut color. So yeah, that is the shawl. I have been wanting to make a simpler modular shawl. I like designing them because it's just a little bit more freeing. You know, I start with one texture and then I go, okay, I'm gonna knit this for a little bit. And then when I'm tired, I'm figuring out the next steps as I go. And it's really fun and engaging to design. But I tend to make them a little bit more convoluted with more complex textures. So I wanted one that was simpler and beginner friendly. So for people who would like to just have a relaxing knit or work on learning basic textures, because you have knit, purl and slipped stitch basically techniques, and that's it. And yeah, so that is the new design, which is now available, and it is 15% off for the release with the code Oberon until Sunday. It looks really good, all bunched up together, all these very seasonally appropriate colors, right? So moving on to a finished object, and I'm gonna go with the top that I'm wearing, which is my Baigneuse top, which is a pattern from Atelier Émilie, which is a French designer, but she releases her patterns in English as well. And I had already made one in a merino and tencel blend, which I love to wear in the mid-season, and I wanted one in a summer fiber so I could wear it when it's a bit hotter. So I made this one in Katia Yarn's Tencel Cotton, which is tencel and cotton, because I have used this yarn for a t-shirt last year and really liked it. And so it is a top-down, almost racer back, kind of sleeveless top, and yeah, you have this round, rather close neckline. It's not so much razor back as like open armhole, but if I have my bra straps normally, they do show, which is not something I mind personally. I have more issues. Sometimes I would like to make some summer tops which has a low V on the back, and I have more pet peeve showing the bra strap at the back than those ones here. Those ones I don't mind. I most often wear this top with a shirt on top of it, or I just do this. Basically, I just put the straps slightly inward, and they don't tend to move really. So that's it. It works for me. And yeah, I am really happy with it. I was afraid I would have to make it much shorter than what I would like, because I only had 4 balls of the 4. That's 5 or 3, so 4. 4 balls of the yarn, and it is like a few centimeters shorter than my previous one, but it's still the length that I like to wear. And yeah, really simple. What's nice also with this one is that you pick up stitches here and here. So if you want to make larger ribbing to hide your bra straps, you can. You can also make short rows so that you don't have much height here, because for me this is enough. But if you want just the top to be wider, you can make short rows and you can like have a little cap like this. And yeah, a really simple, really clear pattern to follow. There's been a few patterns in this shape lately, and it's nice because they all have slightly different finishing details. I've seen Jessie made one with slightly more open, more properly racer back and a mock neck. Along avec Anna is working on one as well, which is striped, and it looks like the neckline is a bit more square. It's lovely. And I got the tonight top from Lily Kate Mates, which is this one has like properly more satin like armholes, which is nice, and it has a turtleneck because she's English, and I I say that it's not a style judgment, it's a weather judgment. But yeah, the turtleneck sleeveless where I live, definitely not for the summer. However, I plan to make it for winter to wear under cardigans and things, and it's gonna be lovely. And I love this one because it has really neat finishing, which I'm really excited to knit. But yeah, if you like this kind of top, I highly recommend this one if you like the shape of it. But just go around because there are quite a lot of different ones at the moment which have different details, so you can choose which one you prefer. But I like this one. I do plan on making more. I would like a striped version, and I would like one with a bit more ease, because I make mine quite fitted, because that's the shape that I like to wear. I have like 25 not 25, but I have a lot of commercial made tops like this, and so I would like to kind of have knitted ones instead. And I would like to make one with more ease in the drapier fabric to see how that works. But I don't know yet what kind of fiber I could use. I'm considering a bamboo cotton blend, but I don't know which one exactly. So yeah, maybe for next summer, maybe I'll end up making a Benius top every summer, because I do really like it, and it's so quick to knit. And yeah, I have another finished project which I don't have with me, because this is the t-shirt that I was knitting for my mom for Mother's Day, so I have gifted it to her in time, and so I don't have it with me anymore, but I will insert a video of me wearing it when it was finished. So it is bigger on me, one size too big, and it's also too long for what suits me. My mother and I have opposite body types, which is ridiculous, but you can get an idea of how it turned out, and she's really happy with it. It suits her well, I think. And yeah, so this is a modified version of my Oread design. So my Oread design is a t-shirt with 2 texture panels on the sides and twisted stitch cable-y texture panels. My mother really liked the shape of it, so I had decided to knit her one for a gift. So I've been waiting for Rerum Natura to restock their linen Antigone. Do you say Antigone in English? I don't know. Antigone base in the Prunelle colorway, which is a are you a spider or are you a fly? I can't see. I don't have my contact lenses, so it's blurry, and it's a black thing that's moving. You better be a fly. And it's quite big, so I hope it is big. I can deal with spiders. I don't really like them, but I can deal with them. Oh no, it's one of those little buggy things that stinks. I will put you outside later. Don't go too far. And so it's a true zoo podcast. What am I even saying? Yes, the linen from the Rerum Natura, the Antigone base. I was waiting for a restock in the Prunelle colorway, which is really interesting. Brown, purpley, chestnut kind of color, which my mother loved. And so what I did is that I removed the texture panels from Oread and instead knitted stockinette, and then made a purl stripe every 2 inches, 5 centimeters or so, and it's really nice. I really like it. It's so if you want to do something similar, if you have the Oread pattern and you would like to make the modification, you should size down, because as you don't have the tighter gauge of the texture panels, you need to remove some stitches so you get the same measurement. So size down, and if you're on the smaller size, remove 5 stitches per shoulder cast on. So this will remove 20 stitches on the body, and it should be about right. There you go. And it, what did I want to say? Yes. The Oread Tee is a customizable neckline, so I knitted her lower just by knitting straight on the shoulders for longer, because she likes that. And you might remember that when I was knitting on it, I mentioned the bias issue of knitting with plant fibers. So it's not just plant fibers. When you're knitting with a yarn that has sort of a unbalanced twist, basically, because when you spin a yarn, you spin yarn in one direction. And if you leave just one ply, a single ply, this is also something that can happen with single ply, is that you only have one direction that the yarn is going with. And when you're making a 2-ply, so you have 2 plies twisted in one direction, but when they're plied together, they're plied in the opposite direction, which creates a balanced yarn, which is why 2-ply yarns are laying flat. And so anything that will not lay flat may have an unbalanced tension. So for example, high twist yarns, we have some sock yarns that are tightly twisted, and it's great because it has durability, good stitch definition, and is very bouncy, but it's so tightly twisted that it's a bit too much, and it's not a negative thing, but it's depending on the type of fabric that you're making. If you're knitting in the round, it might twist because the yarn is so twisty. And plant fibers, they need to be twisted quite a lot and quite tightly to hold together. And so this is why some plant fibers, they tend to bias. What happens is that if you're knitting in the round, your knitting will sort of go at a diagonal, and your tops or sweaters, they might twist like this. This is kind of the extreme thing. What you notice first is if you have a vertical patterning, like you can actually see it in my ribbing here. You can see how it goes a bit at an angle. That is the bias that is happening on the ribbing, because you can clearly see. I have a sweater with brioche details, and one of the yarn that I used for the brioche was tightly twisted, a high twist, and my brioche is slanted because of that. And it's very visible if you have a vertical motif and you have a yarn that is biased in, you're knitting it in the round, it's gonna go like this. And sometimes it's fixed with blocking. You can sort of correct it. But what I find is that there's not much you can do. If the yarn is doing this, it also depends on your tension, on the type of stitch that you're doing. But if your yarn is doing this, I tend to just give up and just change yarns, because it's not suited to that type of project. When I was knitting on this tee, and I mentioned that I wanted to be sure there was no biasing, someone talked about, asked if I made fake seams on the side. Like you could, when you're knitting in the round, you can make a purl stitch on each side and it creates a fake seam. And someone was wondering if that would not fix it. I have a t-shirt in linen that has fake seams that I knitted in the round, and it has like 2 purl stitches on either side. It is biasing anyway. I think it's the fact that you have a wide area of one simple texture, that if your yarn will bias, it will. Even if it's interrupted in one area, it still has too much of room to do it. This is why I usually knit my summer project flats, because I don't mind seaming on the side. If it's a straight seam, I don't mind it, and it prevents the bias. But I wanted to knit this t-shirt in the round because I didn't have that much time to knit it, and I knit faster in the round. And I luckily do not notice any bias. Before blocking, I could sort of see that in some stockinette section it was kind of slanting a bit, and it's also slanting on the ribbing, of course. But I think the fact that there's the Purl stripe, it breaks it regularly enough that it's not biasing. And yeah, it sort of fixes it because it's a regular interruption. And I think that's kind of what you need, is that you need to not make the same stitch for too long if you're knitting in the round with a plant fiber. So didn't have a problem with this project, but definitely I'm not going to risk it whenever I can avoid to, and I will preferably work my summer fibers flat, or if I have like a vertical thing, I have to be a bit careful, because yeah, I don't see any solution if you want to avoid that at all costs. So yeah, that's it for these finished projects. And I also have a third finished project, which is the frog. So I'm not going to remove the sweater. I will explain to you why, but I have finished the frog and I have made it a sweater. So this is a pattern that I talked to you about in the last podcast. This is the frog pattern by Garland, you know it. And in the last podcast I had made the body, and so now I have completed it and made its limbs. I'm going to insert pictures of the frog just with the limbs so you can see how it looks. Basically the legs and front legs, they are I-cords. So you pick up stitches and you knit an I-cord, and you need to make it very tight. So all the people that have issues with I-cords being too tight, this is for you. Because I even needed to pull the yarn to tighten it after the fact, because you really needed to knit it super tight for it to look like a tube, because an I-cord is a tube, and so you're knitting the stitches, then you're not turning, you're bringing the yarn around and knitting again in the same direction, and so you need to be quite tight in this instance so that the tube forms and is cohesive. After a few rows, your first stitch will sort of get closer to your last stitch and it will twist like this. And it was a bit of a pain, honestly, to make the legs. Because I wanted to insert wire in it so that I could stitch it properly and so that I could take silly Instagram pictures. I really did not have the proper wire for this. In the video that Garland has in the pattern, which is super clear and nice, she uses something that looks like a ribbon, which I have never seen before. It's flat and it's still wiry, so it keeps its shape, but it's a bit more malleable. And since it's flat, it's easier to conceal. Because what happened with this is that you put the wire through the frog, so you have the two wire bits hanging, and you knit your legs around. But the problem is, my wire kept sliding. And after moving it around, it was a bit difficult to conceal at the end. As you can see, it's still poking out in some areas. And I keep trying to put it back in, and it's a bit annoying. Because my wire is, I think, too firm for this. And because it's a simple round wire, it just pokes out. And it kept sliding from one limb to the other, and it was a bit annoying. So I'm not going to manipulate it anymore, because every time I kept trying to move it around, the wire would poke out and I can't put it back in neatly, and it's a bit annoying. Yeah, if I ever make another one or make other toys and I want to put wire, I'm gonna look for that flat thing because it looks a lot easier to conceal. Because when you're done with the limbs, with the I-cord, you knit the toes flat, and then you have a lot of yarn ends poking, which is kind of funny because it's kind of horrific, horror movie vibe with all the yarn ends floating from the limbs, and you weave them back down, concealing the wire, or trying to, and stuffing the leg at the same time, which is really convenient. But definitely not possible to conceal my wire properly. You can see it here. And yeah, as I was moving the frog to take my silly pictures, I kept having to rearrange it, and it kind of over fuzzed the mohair, and it's a bit messy. And so it's gonna stay put like this anyway. Like, I'm not going to manipulate it 20 billion times. It's gonna stay on its shelf. I also made it a sweater because I sent the pictures of the frog to my mother, which also loves seeing them on Instagram, and she was so offended that it was naked. I think what she likes most is the clothes that people knit for the frogs. And so when mine was just naked, she was like so outraged. I thought I was about to get disinherited. I don't know how you say it. Anyway, so I knitted it a sweater. And this is also a pattern that's on Claire Garland's shop. You knit it flat. I could have done a better job at aligning my seams, but I did not. And it's a bit long. I think it's more like a tunic. It's a sweater dress. But it's cute, and yeah, I'm really happy whenever it's just sitting here on its shelf, and I think it's a nice decor for the bookshelf. And whenever I'm over there on the couch reading and I just happen to see it in my in my view, it makes me happy. I think it's really cute and funny, and I like it. I noticed that I don't have any books with a frog on it, which is offensive, and I should fix that. But yeah, it's just sitting there chilling. It does not have a name. I don't know why. Lots of people wanted me to name it. I'm sorry, this is about how far as my silliness will go. I just can't come up with a name. It's just the frog. Okay, it can have whatever name you want it to have, but yeah, that is it for the little frog for now, and really fun. And it does make me a little bit more confident to knit some other of Claire Garland's patterns, especially since the ones that I have my eye on, I won't need to put wire on them. But yeah, I have one last project that I would like to share with you, which is a new work in progress, a new design that I'm working on for the autumn. And yeah, it's gonna be the weird moment where I'm wearing and talking about personal summer project, but I'm already designing fall and winter garments, so it's gonna be weird. I started this on Monday. We are now Thursday. And what happened is I finally watched the last season of The Last Kingdom. I haven't watched the movie yet. I will after I finish recording. And it's funny because I don't knit very fast. And what happens is if I have a good distraction like a movie, a book, or a series that I'm really hooked by, then I just zoom through things. And yeah, I take breaks, obviously. Take break when you're knitting. But it just goes so fast. And I knitted all of this in 3 days because I watched the entire season in 3 days. I do like The Last Kingdom, the sidetrack, because I'm obsessed and I need to talk about it. I do like The Last Kingdom a lot. I didn't at first. At the beginning, I think it's a bit odd. So it's not really Vikings. It's about implementation, like immigration of Vikings, Danish people in England, 10th century, reuniting England, blah blah blah. And I like it more, I think, than Vikings, the actual series. Vikings, the actual series, I love the second part with the sons. I don't like the first few seasons so much. But The Last Kingdom, I think I like it more. And that wasn't the case at the beginning because it's a bit weird. And I kind of had a hard time with the main character at first because he felt not cold, but just a bit aloof. And it just was going so fast, and it felt like it was really surface living. Like it felt like I was watching a recap of something, because at some point he's like, so first of all, everybody dies in this freaking series. It's horrible. It's quite a violent series. It's not really gory or doing it for the shock value, but it is violent, and there are some images that are kind of difficult. But the problem was, like, at the beginning, sometimes, like, he meets a woman, he marries the woman, they have kids, their kids die, and then they're mad at each other and they divorce in one episode. And I was like, stop it. And so I had a hard time getting into it, but now at the end I feel really invested because of all that happened, and then it gets a bit slower and more into the details, and I think it's cool, and I like the main character now. I think it's interesting to have a warrior Viking man, kind of main character, but it's not doing that so much. It's actually interesting. Like, you see him cry. It's kind of, it's a bit more nuanced than this, and I like that. And I started watching the last season finally, and like all of my favorite characters, something horrible happens to them every episode. Like, you could see it's the last season, so we need to conclude everything, and so it's like every episode something horrible happens, and it's like, please stop. And so I was really invested in it. I need to watch the movie that concludes the series. My brother watched everything, and I told him, if my favorite character dies in the movie, I will be very upset. Very upset. I was really invested as I was watching it. And so I knitted everything, all of this, in 3 days. Making breaks and everything. So I'm just so hyper-focused when I have something that I'm really into. And so this is a new design that I'm working on. It is a Colourwork yoke, and it's going to be a fitted Colourwork yoke, because that is the one yoke fit that I'm sure I like. I'm still playing around with the yokes. I'm not so sure how to make them work for me. I know I don't like wider necklines in yoke, because it looks like it's falling. I don't think it suits my shoulder shape. It feels like it's sloping. I don't like it how it looks. Also, if I'm wearing a sweater, it's cold enough that I actually want my neck covered. And I do like mock and turtlenecks. I think they suit me better. And so I know that for a yoke, I want a higher neckline. And I think if I have a higher neckline and lots of ease, it's okay. There's a design by Sally Nordlund that I want to make. There's 50 designs by Sally Nordlund that I want to make. She's working on really pretty summer things at the moment. But she has, last winter, I think, released a couple of big Colourwork jumpers, and I want to make one. And I think it is the right shape for me. It's a higher neck, and then it has ease. I just perhaps need to make sure that I really have a tight neck, or as much as possible. So I will need to be careful with my gauge and my ribbing gauge in relation to my stockinette and Colourwork gauge. So I'm not so sure yet about the amount of ease, about positive ease yoke sweater, but what I know I like is fitted yoke that I know suits me and I like it. So this is what I'm making basically. It's gonna be really fitted. It looks a bit small, and I was a bit afraid, even though I keep checking my gauge and my calculations were right. But I tried it on and it's good. And I think I managed to make it so that if you do pick a bit more ease, it should work without it fumbling. But yeah, basically, so I started with the 2x2 ribbed neck, which you can make wider if you like. It's fairly easy with yokes because you cast on a certain amount of stitches here, but then after the ribbing you increase rather quickly to a higher number of stitches. So what you can do is you can just cast on the number of stitches that you have here before the short rows on the back of the neck, and you can fudge it a bit because it's not a you need a 4-stitch repeat to work the ribbing, and here it's not a 4-stitch repeat, but you can fudge it and increase a little bit here, 2 stitches, just to get back to the right number of stitches and still have a wider neck. If you do want a turtleneck or a mock neck, but you need it to be stretchy, one thing that I notice people don't do a lot is, so I use the German twisted cast on, which is stretchy. So you can use a stretchy cast on, but more important than that is spacing your stitches when you're casting on. So you can cast on with a larger needle, or what I learned when I was 8 is to cast on with over 2 needles, right? This doesn't make your cast on stretchier, it makes your stitches bigger, which is something that you might want, because sometimes when you cast on your stitches are too tiny and it looks a bit weird. So if you want bigger stitches, you can do this, cast on over 2 needles or over a bigger needle size, but it won't make your cast on stretchier. What makes the cast on stretchier is use a stretchy cast on, but most importantly is spacing your cast on. So I'm going to use a backward loops cast on, but you can see what I mean. When you cast on stitches, don't tighten them one close to the other like this. Don't do this. Space them like this. You have to leave space in between your stitches about this size. What I do basically is that I have just half of my, the pulp of my finger, half of my, how's it called, knuckle. And when I tighten the stitches, I sort of block it with my finger like this. And this is how you get a stretchier cast on. And it doesn't, after a while the stitches even themselves out, and it doesn't leave an empty space, So this ensures that your cast on has horizontal elasticity, and it's more efficient than just using a stretchy cast on. Because if you just use a stretchy cast on but your stitches are too tight one to the other, then it's not it's not going to have enough elasticity. But yeah, if you do this, then you see it doesn't look weirdly spaced. People who are so into tubular and Italian bind-offs and cast-ons are gonna be mad, but yeah, it's how I have tighter necklines with a bit more elasticity. Can you please refocus? Thank you. And yeah, so that's it about neck cast-ons. Did some German short rows, and then I have this Colourwork. And so this up until here is kind of the yoke increase section, and then from here is a long repeat, and I'm not finished yet. I have 2 more bigger designs which are kind of like a version of this but split, one is going to go one way and one is going to go the other way, and it's 90 rows but it's very short repeats, This is 16 stitches on the yoke, and then it's 8 stitches. So it's very short, it's easy. There are a few floats to catch from time to time, but it's going to be quite beginner friendly, especially since yokes are an easier construction method to learn than raglans. I think it's more understandable for beginners, and if not, it's just really fun and engaging. And yeah, I really like it. I want to make Colourwork all over the body and the sleeves, but I don't know if I have enough yarn because I only have one skein of my contrast color. And yeah, so what I'm gonna do is I'm on the body now. I'm going to finish my first skein of main color, make one sleeve, because I need to make one sleeve anyway, because I want to start the test as soon as I have the body and one sleeve done, so that people have enough time to test it. I would like to release it by the end of September. And hopefully I have enough contrast color to make the full sleeves in Colourwork. I do want long ribbing on the cuffs and on the hem. So I think I can kind of cheat like this. And I have other Colourwork garments in this gauge, which is fingering weight gauge, by the way. And well, that doesn't mean anything, but it's like around 26 stitches per 10 centimeter. I do have other garments like this, and it should be enough, but you know, I'm not very good at estimated yarn usage. I always I'm kind of baffled by how different it can be depending on yarn, the type of yarn that you use, the fiber density, etc. But yeah, what I'm using is a superwash merino from L'Atelier Teinture, which is a French indie dyer, which I ordered a bit ago. And so it's a pure merino, 400 meters per 100 gram. The main color is Vert Impérial, which is a really nice bottle green. It's less blue than what it shows on the camera, but it's really pretty. I really like it. And I paired it with Bleu Glacier, which is the icy blue, in my never-ending endeavor to reject the idea that you shouldn't wear blue and green together. I think it looks so beautiful. I really like it. So yeah, so I want to make it all over Colourwork, but you will be able to stop whenever. So like you can stop here and have just the upper yoke. You can stop at the separation of body and sleeves, or you can continue a little bit deeper on the body and on the sleeve, and then make the rest in stockinette in the main color. And I think that it will provide nice options. So yeah, I'm using superwash because I think I've talked about this on Patreon, not here. I like geometric Colourwork shapes in superwash. I don't know why. So non-superwash woolen spun, preferably yarns, work beautifully for Colourwork because they present a cohesive fabric. Like the stitches are gonna grab to one another. You're not gonna see individual stitches neatly. You're gonna see the whole picture. And I love that for organic, motif, flowery things, figurative designs. But when it's a geometric pattern, I kind of like the sleekness and the neatness of superwash. I don't know why. I like to see edge stitches in these types of motif. It's just the look thing, which I kind of like. The thing is, I usually knit Colourwork two-handed, so that's how I usually knit Colourwork. When I'm using non-superwash fibers, it works really well. But when I'm using superwash fibers, my tension is not the best. In general, my tension is not great knitting-wise. But if I'm knitting two-handed Colourwork with superwash fibers, I notice it's bad because I keep having to readjust my contrast color tension because it's too loose, the one that I hold on my left hand, because I'm usually right-handed knitter. So I'm actually knitting this on my right, only with my right hand. And just to say how obsessed I was knitting this and watching the show, that I'm pretty slow, only using my right hand in Colourwork, and still I did all of this. I need to calm down. But yeah, it's just the thing. The thing is, using superwash yarns, they're so like slippery that if I have any tension issue, it's even worse. So I'm just doing it with my right hand. And in any case, I always have to do the sleeves holding the two yarns in my right hand, because when I knit with small circulars, I'm not comfortable having my two hands needing to keep yarn tensioned. It's a bit awkward for me, and I'm not very good at it, and it kind of cramps me. So, and I always want to use circulars for Colourwork. I don't like magic looping in Colourwork. So I'm using 25 centimeter circulars for sleeves, and doing Colourwork only with my right hand. And it's lower, but it gives me a better tension, basically, which I do need using superwash yarns. But yes, that is the project. Does not have a name yet. I don't know what I will name it, but I really love it and I'm obsessed with it. And I can't wait to see if I can have the full body in Colourwork. So yeah, that is what I'm working on at the moment. And that's all that I wanted to share with you for this episode, which have been a bit chatty. But yeah, I arrange my filming so that sometimes I film in advance, like usually about a week in advance. But the way that I set up myself is that there was actually a longer time when I filmed, oh my god, sentences. I've spoken for like 2 hours, and now I'm not gonna speak for the next 24 hours at all, because I'm not able to. There was quite a bit of time between last time I filmed and now, so that's why I have quite a lot to share with you, and I actually have more, which I planned for next time, which will be early July, where I will see you again with some new projects. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you next time.